Hello, this is Wes McDermott, and in this Maya LT for Unity developers video, we're going to look at creating a skeleton for use with Unity's mechanism system. So here I have this character I created, his name is Earl, and we're going to use this as a demo asset, and we're also going to be focused on, if we come over here to our animation tab, we're going to be focused on these set of tools here, specifically taking a look at our joint tool. So the first thing I want to cover is our joint tool. So let's just select the tool. We'll double click here to open up the tool settings. And let's just go ahead and take a look at how we can quickly use the joint tool to lay down some joints for our character skeleton that we're going to create. And so here I'm just going to go into my front view. And so from a front view, we'll start to draw our joints. Now here underneath the joint settings, you can see that we have our degrees of freedom that we can choose. Symmetry, so we can actually enable to create these joints in symmetry mode. So let's just do this across the x-axis. And we can also do some things here where we can actually turn on something called projected centering. That's going to take in consideration the actual volume of your mesh so that as you click to create these joints, it will place the joints in that center volume. And so with that, we can also go ahead and turn on here some orientation settings. So you can see that we have our primary, our secondary axis. So we can see that the primary axis is going to be the X, and then our secondary axis in this case is going to be the Y. So now with the joint tool selected, let's just go ahead and create some joints here in our viewport. So I'm going to start here with basically just the upper leg. So I'll click, and then I'll click again here, left click right here around where the knee is going to be. Now if I just single left click and hold, I can actually click and drag out another joint. And then finally here, we have our ankle. Let's go ahead and just put in our foot joint here. And so now that we have our legs established, you can see that I was able to create these on a symmetrical axis. Let's just go ahead and jump over here into our right view, and we're going to make a few tweaks to this. What I'm going to do now is just go here into my move tool, and then I'm just going to start to just move these joints here into place. And so you can see that they're also just working here in symmetry as we do this. Let's go ahead and pull these here. This tip here, which is going to be like our toe. We'll go ahead and put this into place, and let's make sure that our ankle here is correct. And again, let's just move this joint up as we do so. Now, one of the things is we have a few options here underneath our move tool. So I'm going to hold down the W key on the keyboard and just hit my left mouse button. And you can see here that we do have an option here called Preserve Child Transform. So we have the ability to work in World, Object Axis. Again, these are just the tool settings for our Move tool. And I want to just, again, bring your attention to this Preserve Child Transform. So if we turn this off, we can actually work with these joints in a hierarchy mode. So now you can see that with this object selected, it's moving the entire hierarchy. If, for instance, say that I come down here around the knee and I start to drag this knee joint, you can see that it's affecting the knee and the foot joint as well. Now, if I want to go in and make some fine-tune adjustments, I would then just hold the W key down, left click to get my marking menu, come over here and make sure that I have Preserve Child Transform enabled, and now I can actually just move this joint here for better placement, and I'm not affecting all the children that is down the hierarchy of that particular joint that I have selected here. So now we'll just go into our perspective view, and you can see that we have some joints for our legs. We just quickly were able to create those with our joint tool. Let's go ahead and just close out the tool settings, and if we go and click this button here to give us a 2 view where we have our perspective and our outliner, you can see that we have these 2 joints here. And then I can go through the process of renaming these. So I might name this, upper leg, and then just go ahead and give it a side here. So I usually like to do _L and so on for all the left legs, and then _R for all the right. And so we could go through that entire process of using the joint tool to create our entire skeleton. However, there's another way that we could do this that's more automated, and that's using MyLT's Human IK. And Human IK works very well with Mechanim, and it's a similar system in that it allows us to create a character skeleton. It also allows us to retarget that animation. And so what I want to focus this video mainly on is how we can use Human IK to generate us a skeleton for use within Unity's Mechanim system. So we'll make sure that we're under the animation module, and we'll come here to the top under the drop-down menu for skeleton, and we'll choose Human IK, and that's going to open the character controller tab here on the right side of the screen, and this will give us the ability to create our first skeleton. So underneath the create, I'm just going to click the skeleton button, and you can see that a skeleton has been created for us. So we have some options underneath the skeleton tab, so if we just kind of zoom in a little bit here on our skeleton. We have the ability to adjust our character scale, our spine count, our neck, shoulder, and so on. We've got the ability to add some roll bones to this if we wish. In the case of the fingers, if we take a look at my character, I do not have as many fingers here as the joints. So let's go ahead and just make sure that we turn off this ring finger. So I'm just going to click this button here, and you can see that the ring finger joints have now been removed from the skeleton. So now I have the appropriate number. And then we also have the same thing where we can go through the process of toes and so on in our toe joint count. And we also have the ability to add in our hips translation and stuff. So there's a few options here to help us in the creation process of how we want these joints to be. So like, what number of joints we want, special joints such as our roll finger joints and things like that, or roll bones that we want to add to the skeleton. So once we actually have the skeleton created, we can go through the process of just arranging the joints so that they match the character more precisely. Let's just click our definition tab. So here you can see this is basically describing this human IK skeleton. And so if you're used to using Mechanim in Unity, this is a very similar system when you're actually defining a Mechanim compliant skeleton inside of Unity. So here we're looking at basically the main set of joints that are required in order to make this human IK system valid. And so you can see all the joints are green, and we have this green validation status here letting us know that all these joints are in place. Now you'll want to keep this definition tab open, because as we start to move these joints into place around our character, we can actually break this validation, because there's a few rules here. So for instance, if we come over to our joints, let's just take a look at what we have selected here. This is going to be our shoulder. And if I were to just start to move this guy, or here, let's grab our elbow and just move this all the way forward. And you can see so far we're good. We're not breaking anything as of yet, but what we could end up happening is we could move this joint, and here you can see that we've done that now. And right here at our shoulder here, if we just mouse over this area, this is our left arm. And so if we look at our validation status here, it says the left arm doesn't seem to be parallel to the x-axis. So our arms need to be parallel to the x-axis. So let's just go ahead and just undo this and just keep that in mind as we work through this. So let's just start here with our hips and just kind of work our way up the body. So I'm just going to go into my front view here, and we'll start to just place these joints. And so again, with that, keeping in mind that validation status, let's just make sure that we don't break that. So you can see that I've moved this joint, and now this left upper leg. If we go to our validation status, we can see here our second rule is that the hips don't seem to be facing the positive direction of the z-axis. And so the way I work around that is I'll select the hips, and then I will select my upper legs and then move them that way. And so with that said, we want to make sure that our preserve child transform is off. So again, I'm going to hold down the W key, left click to get the option box, and then just here, let me go back there. And we just want to make sure that that preserve child transform is enabled as we work. So we have this selected. Now we can just go ahead and just start to move these joints into place. And now you can see that I'm not breaking any of my validation as I do this. So I just want to put my hips right about where the character is going to be. Now, once I have kind of that hips in place, I'm going to go ahead and just start here with that upper leg. Now, in this case, I'm going to then go back and make sure that my preserve child transform is off, because I want to move this entire leg as one unit. So now I'll just start to just move this leg over to the side, and I'm just kind of just taking a look at how the feet are going to line up and how my knee is going to line up and so on. And so now we have this one leg in place. Now you'll notice that we're breaking our symmetry as we do this, but there's an actual really good way we can handle that here in just a moment. We'll talk about that. And so now we'll just make sure that we have this in place. Let's go back to our knee. In this case, I want to just work with the knee joint itself. So we'll just again go back to our preserve child transform, and now we can actually just tweak this joint here so it's in place with our knee. Let's go ahead and jump over to our right view and take a look at what's going on here. One of the things that we could do in this case is we could actually just enable our wireframe on shaded so we can kind of see what we're doing. Something else is we can actually colorize these joints. So let me just double click the hip joint to basically select all the joints in the hierarchy. Let's go over here to our attribute editor, and let's come over and make sure that we're under that character hips. Let's come down to this display section here. And finally, we'll come all the way down here to our drawing overrides, and we'll enable some drawing overrides on this. So once I do that, you'll see that we have this color slider, and actually just drag the slider here to pick a color that'll really stand out for us. So let's just pick something like this bright red. And so now when you go back, you can see that now all of our joints are this bright red, and it makes it much easier to work with. So now let's just go back to that joint. So we have that guy selected, and we're just going to put him into place here. Let's go ahead and grab hold of our foot. And let's put this foot here, or actually position this ankle. So right in this area where we want our ankle to be, and our toe looks fine for now. So now we'll just go back into our perspective view, and you can see that those joints for that leg, or that left leg, are in place. Let's go back to our character controls tab, and you can see that our validation is still good. And then we'll continue on the process of just aligning the rest of the joints. Okay, so let's take a look at this upper body. So here, let's go into our front view, and let's start to take a look at maybe our shoulders here. So what do we have? We've got our preserved child is on. Let's go ahead and turn this off, and let's start to just take basically this clavicle and just kind of pull this guy up. We'll also take a look at, well here, let's take a look at this joint here. This is like our chest. Let's move this guy up actually, and let's take a look at one of our spines here. Preserve child back on because I'm going to adjust this manually. So here I'm just taking a look at the spines. Let's go back to that clavicle, and let's move that as a unit. So we'll turn preserve child off. We'll move this down into place. So we'll put that clavicle about here. And then so you can see that here is where we have that clavicle or shoulder. And now we'll go ahead and start placing in our arm. So let's go ahead and just take this shoulder and just put this over here into place. And here, about here's where our elbow is going to be. And you can see that I'm just kind of moving the hands down as I work. Let's go ahead and just grab hold of our hands and just put those, that right here about where the wrist is. So now that we've kind of have this done from the front view, let's go ahead and just take a look at what we have in the perspective view and see, because I think we could just move this all as one unit. So let's just go ahead and grab this guy here, and preserve child is off, and let's see what happens here. So we'll move this into place. So notice that I'm working with this entire, well actually I'm going to grab hold of this chest here. Let's just kind of move this chest back a little bit. And so as I move this chest, I'm just kind of work with the overall spine here too, to give a little bit of a curvature into that spine. So let's just move this chest back here, and let's see how that's going to work with the hands here. Let's just move it forward a little bit. There we go. And let's go into our preserve child transform. Let's go ahead and just grab hold of this spine. Let's just kind of move this back here, and we'll just move this into place here. And so again, I'm just kind of going through the process, just moving things with, at their individual pivots when I need to, and then just trying to move things, as a hierarchy as much as possible, just to kind of keep things in check as we work here. So let's go ahead and grab this, and now we can just start to adjust our elbow. So I might just pull the elbow back just a little bit here. Notice that it's okay to adjust our elbow. We've got a slight bend here, but we don't want to really mess with that clavicle or shoulder bone or upper arm. And so now we'll go ahead and take our hand, and we'll just move our hand down. Actually, let's do that, the entire hand. So let's turn off our preserved child, and let's just move our hand down into place. Now you can see that by doing that, I just I have a validation error. So again, it's just talking about the arm is not parallel to the x-axis. So let's just undo that and make sure that we keep that in check. So again, if I go ahead and move this, that's probably going to give me that same error. No, we're okay there. So let's just move it down from basically that forearm. And so now we've got that in place. Well, there we go. We just broke our, let's try that again here. I think we're okay at that point. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and just start working with our fingers. So we'll grab this finger here, and we'll go ahead and just move this into place. So we'll just grab this guy, and I'm just going to rough these in just really quick. Just kind of move these joints into place here. So again, I'm just moving them on the hierarchy. So I'm just grabbing kind of this finger, just moving it one axis at a time, just to kind of get these guys just roughly in the place of where they need to go. And now we'll start to go through the process of just aligning these a little bit better here. So let's go ahead and just take a look at our thumb. We'll go ahead and just kind of place our thumb here. And in this case, I will now go back into my preserved child, and now I'll just start to just tweak this thumb here. Now, one thing that we could do is I'm just going to F on the keyboard to kind of just focus this selection, and I'll pull it back a little bit. And then I'm just going to hold down the V on the keyboard, and I can actually just snap that joint to a vertex position. So it's just a way to quickly just kind of line this guy up to some of these vertices here on the mesh. So you can see that I can just quickly just grab hold of a joint, hold down the V key, and just snap that to a vertice. Just got to be careful on what vertices you're actually snapping that to. So here we'll just pull that up like this. Just kind of put this guy into position. Notice that I'm only working with the transform, so I don't want to actually do any type of rotation on any of these items. So again, if we come over here to our channel box, you can see that all of our rotations are kept zeroed out on the skeleton, which is good. That's what we want to do. And so let's do the same thing here. Let's go ahead and grab this guy. We'll just bring him all the way down here. Actually, let's undo that. Let's go ahead and turn off our preserve child transform. And let's just move this whole kind of finger into place here. Just kind of get it about where we want. and we'll just push this down, and then what we'll do is just we'll use that point snapping. So we'll turn on preserve child, we'll select this joint here, hold down the V key, and just snap that joint basically to a position here. So here we go. Let's just grab this guy, we'll just snap that joint. Let's grab the second one here and hold down V, and again we'll just snap him to a vertex. It's just, again, a quick way to kind of just, quickly just get these joints into place here. So now we've got this guy, and then we'll just pull him down on the Y. So real quick, we can just, align these fingers up here. Just kind of make sure, pay attention to all the axes here as you work. I tend to just kind of work in the perspective view versus, jumping in and out of orthographic views. And if you're just real careful on the way that you're using this point snap, it works fine. So let's grab this. We'll go back. We'll turn off preserve child. Let's just move everything as a hierarchy, and we'll basically put ourselves here. And this view just kind of line things up here. Now again, I don't want to rotate this view, so I could just hit the rotate tool and rotate these into place, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to introduce any rotation onto these joints, onto the rotation channels of these joints. So now we'll go back and we'll do preserve child, hold down the V key, and we'll just snap this joint here to a vertex, and it's just really quick way to line these guys up, and we'll just put these in place. And so here you go, see that we're just really quickly getting the arms down, or the fingers. Let's turn off preserve child transform. Let's put this guy into place here, and we will just pull this down. So this is like our pinky here. Just kind of make sure that it's in the volume. And same thing. Let's go and preserve child transform on. Let's grab this joint. Let's hold down the V key, and let's just point snap this guy. And let's grab him, this joint here. Let's point snap this guy. Just kind of get him into place. And then the rest, I think we could just manually just kind of get placed in here like this. So we'll just come up in this view, and again, just tweak them real quick. You can see it's an organic process. It's really easy. I'm just making sure that with the handles that I'm grabbing, I'm just doing 2 axes at one time here in the perspective view. And so there we go, roughly, fingers in place. We'll just move this guy down on the Y, and then just kind of tumble around here just to make sure that all these joints are in place. And they are. And so far we've got a validation status of green. That's good. And so this guy right here, this is our neck. So with that joint selected, you can see that it tells me right here the selected bone in the skeleton here is set to neck. So let's go ahead and just put this into place. I'll just go over here into my right view in this case, and we will just move this joint up here so that he's in the neck area. And then here we'll grab hold of our head, and then we'll just place this joint here at our head. So notice that I'm thinking about how this head would bend. So imagine the head just nodding up and down, and so I'm just placing this joint about right here where I would want that to take place, where I want that articulation to take place. So these joints, again, think of them as basically the pivot points of where your character is going to have its deformation happen. So now we have this joint all set up, and we've done one whole side here. So we've got the left side done. And now we need to work on the right side. Well, it's real simple. We'll just come over back here to our skeleton tab, and then we'll just click this button here that's just going to mirror from left to right. So we just click this button, and our skeleton is completely mirrored and set for us. So we only have to do one side, and the other side is taking care of us. Now, in the case of this character, he wasn't actually built totally symmetrical. So I do have a few issues that I'm going to want to tweak with that. So if we come back over here, I'm just going to want to just do some small tweaks. Again, let's go into our definition, and let's just make sure that I put this guy in the right spot. Here, let's go ahead and make sure that we're in turn off our preserve child transform, and let's just put this guy into place. Again, let's just undo that. Make sure that we don't break any validations when we actually do this, like I'm doing here. Just move this forward. Get this guy into place. And then we'll just go through the process here of just tweaking these joints here just to put them in place. They're roughly, similar. The best case scenario here is just to make sure that you build your character symmetrical. I had an issue with that, so that's why I'm running into this as well. But you can see that for the most part, it's really simple just to get these just little tweaks here in this case. But, the other side was, you build one side, and then you can easily just move these joints into place and then run that command that'll basically mirror the left side with the right side, and then you're good to go. You don't have to go through and redo all the joints for both sides, which would be really tedious. So in this case here, we've got our joints all set up. We're just about ready to go here. Just a few tweaks, make sure that I get these joints into place here for this hand. Yeah, like I said, would have been a lot easier if I would have made this guy symmetrical. So here we go. All right, so we're good. And so at this point now we have a full skeleton created. I do need to tweak that again, so let me just fix that. There we go. So you can see that as soon as you get that validation status right, everything turns green. So that's what you want in the end. Once you have your skeleton create, you want to make sure that you have that green validation status. And so now, just like that, we have a skeleton that we can easily export with this character over for use within Mechanim. And this skeleton will actually be Mechanim compliant. So once we just import this in, the skeleton will be recognized and it will give us a green validation status, so to speak, with inside Unity as well. So before we go in and bind this mesh to the skeleton, I want to add an eye joint. So to do that, let's go into our right view and let's hit the 4 on the keypad to go into wireframe mode, and let's go back to our joint. I'm just going to double click to open up the tool settings, and this time I want to make sure that my symmetry is set to off. And what we'll do is just kind of close out here our outliner, and let's just go ahead and just place a single joint at the center of this eye. Let's go into the front view and make sure this is in the correct position. So I'll just hit F on the keyboard to focus that. And let's just kind of zoom in here. Let's grab our move tool and just kind of make sure that it's roughly right here within the center axis. And then now finally we'll just go back to our perspective view and we'll take this joint. Let's close our tool settings. Let's go ahead and just expand our outliner, and let's just go ahead and name this eye. And then let's parent this eye to our head joint. So with the joint selected, I'm going to hold down Shift left click the head joint, and then I'm just going to hit P on the keyboard, and that will parent that joint. So now that joint will follow the rest of the skeleton hierarchy. So now we're going to go ahead and bind this mesh here to the actual skeleton. So let's go back into our shading mode. I'm going to hit 5 on the keyboard, well actually 6, so we can view this character with the textures, and then I'll hit 7 to also view my lights. Let's go back over here to our channel box, and I actually have this layer, or this mesh is placed on a layer, so you can see that I can't actually select the mesh itself, and that's because it's set to be referenced. So let's just go ahead and just unclick this, and now you can see that I can select my mesh. And so let's go ahead and select our skeleton. Let's Shift left click our mesh, and let's also make sure that we get our eye here, or I'll tell you what, our eye is separate right now. Let's go ahead and just combine that. So let's select the eye, let's Shift select the mesh. I'm going to hit H and hold down the left key to bring up a marking menu that shows my modes. Let's swipe up to go to polygons. Let's go to the top and say Mesh Combine. So I'm going to combine those two mesh items into a single mesh item. We'll come over here to Edit, and we will delete by type History. And let's go ahead and just rename this. We'll just name this Body. I'm going to middle mouse, click and drag this into my URL group. So underneath of this group, let's make sure it goes in here. So underneath this URL group, we have our shorts. Here's our shorts item, and then finally we have our body. So now let's select the joints. Let's Shift select the entire body, and now we'll again hit H left click to bring open our modes marking menu. Let's swipe over to the right to go to animation, and then under the top here you'll see skin. We want to go to bind skin, smooth bind, and we'll hit the options on this. So here are our smooth bind options. We want to make sure that in this case our bind to is set to joint hierarchy, and we'll leave our fall off here at default, and we'll leave our weight distribution here set to distance. A very important setting here is this max influences, so here it's at 4. This is actually going to correlate to the quality setting for the skin mesh renderer inside of Unity. So on the skin mesh renderer, you'll see that there is a quality setting. What that's talking about is how many bone influence you have. So in this case, we have a setting of 4, which means that any vertice can only be affected by no more than 4 joints at a time. And so if we were to drop this quality setting inside of Unity, you'll see that there's an option to do 2 bones and so on. So we want to keep this at 4, which is basically the highest quality setting here in, or what would be the highest quality setting for our skin mesh render inside of Unity, and we can change that value inside of Unity. So again, we'll leave this at set to 4, and we'll go ahead and just click bind skin. And so what that does is it basically adds to onto our mesh. If we go to our attribute editor, we have a skin cluster, and you can see that here is our skin cluster, again, our max influences. Now, there are two types of skinning methods that we could use, basically classic linear or dual quaternion. Now, weight blended is a mix between the two that lets us paint weights on where we want to use dual quaternion skinning, or if we want to use, here, go back to skin, if we want to use classic linear. Now, as far as Unity is concerned, it only works with classic linear, so we don't need to worry about this dual quaternion skinning method. So we'll keep this set to classic linear. And now if we come over here and we select one of our joints, I'll just hit E on the keyboard to go to the rotate tool, and then I'll just rotate. You can see that our character is now following the joints because he has a skin cluster applied to him. So we'll just undo that.